Exclusive benefits like discounts on thousands of items, special savings for seniors, instant deals, quarterly rebates, plus an extra up to 2% off every quarter. Shop more, save more, and more only at Builders Paradise. Don't miss out. Start building your rewards today with Value Club at Builders Paradise, because every bolt, board, and brush brings you closer to bigger, better savings. Terms and conditions apply.
You're listening to Vaughn Radio from the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Talk That Get Results. I'm Webbo Herbert, and as per usual, we are here every Tuesday evening with something that at least we think is of community interest and or of some concern. And if you think that you have something which fits into that category, you'd like to find out how you can be a part of the program, well, why don't you drop us a line, address it to Let's Talk Program in K of Vaughn Radio, P.O. Box 195 Charlestown in Nevis. Give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. By the way, those will be the numbers you'll use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Talk That Get Results. With regard to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in on the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized. When getting in the show, you take as little time as possible so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards, but we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. You can also follow our live video stream of this program on our YouTube channel at Vaughn Radio. Click subscribe, and our Facebook page, Vaughn Radio. Thank you all again for joining us. Your voice in the community, Talk That Get Results. Tonight, a man is as good as his word. And as promised, from last week's show, the Honorable Premier, Mark Brantley, based on the topic, he called in on the show. We had a discussion, invited him to be here this week, and he is here. The Honorable Mark Brantley, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to my fellow panelists. I'm happy to be back here, and let's talk.
Also, from last week's show, a regular caller, and we appreciate his input through the years. We now know his name. His name is Ira McMahon. He's been making contributions, and I think I can give him the tag that when you get this tag around here, it's like a big trophy. We ain't followed yet. So we debate real hard. And Mr. Ira McMahon, we gave him an invitation. Would you like to be on the show with the Premier so we can discuss this matter? He said yes, and he's here. We appreciate you, Mr. McMahon. Good evening and welcome to the show.
Good evening, Webber, and good evening to the fellow panelists and the audience. And it is really a pleasure to be here. Thanks very much for the invitation. Might be a bit intimidated by the heavyweight's chair, but let's hope I can do it justice.
Well, you are heavyweight, I can tell you that. So we appreciate you. Glendale Herbert, good evening.
Good evening, Webber. It's always a pleasure to be here. We have some major issues here that confronts the country, both St. Kitts and Nevis. Issues of land is an issue of that bear heavily on the minds of people. It changes things around here politically. It changes, it brings people out. It makes people activated. Those who sit on their hand and tend to be apathetic gets a little bit antsy on this matter. So good evening, Webbo, and it's very a crucial time in this country, and we will be discussing this matter.
Well, maybe we can start off with a light moment, because McMahon said, it's kind of a little thing, so let's break the ice. Glendale, you find it yet?
No, we didn't find it.
Okay,
we didn't find it.
we're going to get back to that. So
I suggested where you should look, you know.
you got to be like, well, you got to be like the premier, because maybe you are his bodyguard or something, because he doesn't know where it is, but you can tell him anyway. Conrad Nayalibert, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and once again, thank you for having invited me to this program. To my colleagues on the table, special good evening to you guys, and my friends, as usual, in the international circle who tunes in to this program quite regular. Webbo, you know how happy I am to always be part of this these conversations, and so tonight I expect, and I'm sure, as we always deliver, some may argue differently at times, a great conversation, Webbo. Thank you for having me once again.
So, Mr. McMahon, you see how we do it now?
So far, so good.
Okay, we don't, we play it straight. Okay, so, gentlemen, you want us, we want to settle this thing first, or we want to go into the full discussion? The thing with the Premier and Mr. Glendale, because he was looking for something.
I think that's settled, you know.
That's been settled. Webbo. I said it at the top. We didn't find it.
We did, so he wasn't there.
No, the word no. We did not find the word sovereignty. Nowhere in there. So
Right.
we didn't find it. Period.
Right. So how you manage saying it?
I managed saying it because this scope of sort of settlements, they use a number of different words to describe it. They refer to it as open society. There are sovereignty in some areas around when you research it, zones, all that sort of thing. But I substituted the word zone for by using sovereignty. It is not in the document where we say, you know, I think that's settled.
So you
settled it and I settled it.
So you made it up.
Yes.
Okay.
No, I didn't. Move on.
Walk with me. Remember, you know, that this is my role, right? The Premier is a lawyer, and he can, when you go to thing, he's the judge is who settles it. So you made it up, and the question is, did you make up anything else, or it was just that?
That's it.
That's the only thing you made up. Okay. So
one substitution.
So
yes.
okay. So Premier settled.
Well, I'm satisfied.
Satisfied.
There was nothing unsettled in my mind, because I knew that no such thing existed in the documents that were before the public and before the Parliament. So I was not in any doubt. In fact, if you recall, I said to my brother Glendale, let's move on, because if you search from now till the cows come home, you're not going to find it.
Yeah, but we have to satisfy the public, because that's who we're serving.
I appreciate that. So I'm satisfied that we are, and I suspect now we are all satisfied, that there is no suggestion in the Special Sustainability Zones Authorization Bill 2025, passed in the National Parliament on August 11th, that anybody is going to create any sovereign state on the island of Nevis or on the island of St. Kitts.
Okay, settled. Glendale, I appreciate your honesty in that regard.
I hate to be untoward, but it's settled in terms of, the word is not in the bill, but it's certainly not settled in terms of what the SSZ can eventually be, okay, if we're not careful. So let's not avoid the word.
But no, Mr. McMahon, with respect, you can't say what something is eventually going to be outside the legal framework for that thing.
No. I know
Well, if it's not in the bill, then you're entering the realm now of speculation about what something can be or cannot be. We I believe, have a responsibility to deal with facts and to engage with our public in terms of facts. What is, not what we imagine, not what we think might be, but what is. And that is the difficulty I have sometimes with the national debate. We have a lot of people who are pundits. We have a lot of people who postulate, and they say what if and maybe, and they create hysteria in the public, when in fact the facts are. Last week, when my friend Glendale said that about this thing, I knew that no such thing existed. And that is why I could call in and say to my brother Glendale, don't bother to look for it. It does not exist. And it is futile to have public discussions if when presented with the facts, someone like yourself, Mr. McMahon, will simply say, well, it's not there, but we don't know. It could happen in the future. A lot of things could happen in the future.
Okay.
You and I may fly
Okay,
in the future.
let's do this.
So, I mean,
Let's do this.
Let's leave it what is.
Yeah,
We
we are
should not run
gonna.
away from
I'm
the
sure.
world.
I'm
That's
sure
what
that
I'm
we're gonna get to this once more. But let's start by doing this. We're gonna ask the Premier to give us, as he has just mentioned, the facts and the details of what this project entails, and then we go from there. Mr. Premier.
All right, Webbo. Well, thank you for the opportunity. This project, we had an approach by some developers some time ago, and they said they had an interest in a development on the south coast of Nevis. Now, I think Glendale and Naya would know the south coast well. Mr. McMahon may not. But the south coast of Nevis, we know, is a rather barren area of the island currently. There's nothing over there. No infrastructure. The foliage tends to be largely, it's almost a desert-like landscape, really. And there are no beaches in that area because it's the Atlantic Ocean. And there are a lot of cliffs, and in fact, what has been reported to us as government over the years is that it's an area that is extremely prone to erosion from the sea. So there are one or two properties just past the Long Point Port, and I know I spoke to one of the owners who indicated that his property has lost almost a third of the size of the property already because the sea keeps undermining the land and the land keeps collapsing. We had anticipated, in fact we discussed it in our manifesto as a party, that we would commission a road in that area, and so we were in the process of sending out an RFP, request for proposals for design on the road. The preliminary estimates that were given to us by our technical people was we're talking something north of $40 million to put a road over there. It reminds me a lot of the Peninsula Road in St. Kitts because the government in St. Kitts of the day spent money to put in the Peninsula Road when those lands were largely private lands. And so obviously it was good for the landowners, but in terms of the government sort of having lands in the area, that was not the case. Now, we looked at that area, and the government of Nevis was the owner of 238 acres of land in that general area. Those 238 acres under previous NRP-led administration were part of the land for debt swap. And so those lands were swapped to National Bank for debt. And so those lands are gone from us and from our hands. That is from the NIA. When the folks therefore spoke to us, we responded and said, listen, we don't have any lands in the area. So if you're talking about development, obviously development requires land. You must go and talk to the landowners and see whether or not they'll be minded to engage with you, whether to sell you their land, lease you their land, or whatever. And so my understanding is that a group of individuals have been involved in identifying and calling owners in that area, asking if they would be minded to sell their land or to lease their land or whatever the situation may be. And that is, as I believe, a private conversation that has been happening. The developers have since come back to us, and they've indicated that they are now in a position where they have a large enough parcel of land that has been either sold to them or agreed to be sold to them, that they believe that they can now make a proposal for a project. And therefore they have come in a formal way to the government, and that is why on the 25th of August I would have made an address, public address, where I indicated that we now have a formal proposal. Now what does that proposal do? That proposal talks about the development over there. It talks about a special sustainability zone that they would like to be approved as a special sustainability zone. And that legislation, as we know, was passed on August 11th in the National Parliament. That idea behind this special sustainability zone was really an effort to diversify, to give St. Kitts and Nevis a few more options in terms of economic development. I believe, Webbo, that all of us who are paying attention would say that the Citizenship by Investment program, which has been the golden goose that has laid the eggs for St. Kitts and Nevis for the past 15 years or so, that is under serious attack. In fact, I have not seen recent numbers. Our Prime Minister has not given us any recent numbers, but I would guess that those numbers are dramatically down from the $700 and $800 million a year that we used to make in the heyday of that program. Having said that, I have been pushing various ideas, the cannabis industry. I've been pushing in terms of diversification, talking about options, various things that we should do and we ought to be doing. And I therefore supported this legislation because I think it gives both the federal government and the NIA some options to look at what we can do in terms of development. Now, economic zones aren't new. In fact, my research leads me to Jamaica, which has had them, I believe, since the 1960s. They exist in the Cayman Islands. They exist even in the great United States of America. They exist in Dubai. They exist all around the world. It's not a new idea. Really what the idea is, at its core, is that a certain geographic area is defined as a zone, and within that zone, special rules would apply. So, for example, if the zone is dedicated to manufacturing, they would have maybe duty-free, tax-free, whatever, in order to attract people to that zone and business to that zone. And a good example, Webbo, globally is what is called the Dubai International Financial Center, the DIFC. And what they did at the DIFC is that Dubai, of course, is part of the United Arab Emirates. And as part of the United Arab Emirates, Islamic law would normally apply. The UAE government took the position that Islamic law would not be attractive to investors, especially Western investors. And so they created a special zone called the DIFC. And within that special zone, the common law of England is what applies. They have special mechanisms, for example, arbitration and that kind of thing in that zone. And that zone is perhaps an example of one of the most successful in the world, because investors flooded in to that zone, set up businesses, opened hotels, etc., because they know that they had a regime that they understood, and a regime, therefore, that was different to what would apply outside the zone. So that's basically the idea. It is not a new idea. It has really been around for a while. The difference here is that St. Kitts and Nevis has suggested, or not suggested, we've passed legislation which really anchors the zone in sustainability, which says that whatever is being done has to be done in a way that takes the environment into concern and preserves and protects the environment. And so this is the first time anywhere that you have an economic zone essentially being merged with the idea of sustainability. And that is what is currently being proposed. Now, in terms of what is actually suggested for that area, the people are talking about the possibility, they say, of a minimum of 3 branded neighborhoods. That is resorts and residences. And when they say branded, for example, our people are accustomed to the Four Seasons. If you can imagine the Four Seasons currently is a hotel of 196 rooms and about 70 to 80 villas. That is a Four Seasons neighborhood. So if they were to recreate that, you'd have a Four Seasons neighborhood. You may have a Mandarin Oriental or Ritz-Carlton or whatever neighborhood, and they're anticipating at least 3. Plus the infrastructure. Part of the requirements, and I want to emphasize that, because the legislation sets out at Section 5 a number of preconditions that any developer wanting to do such a zone has to satisfy even before they can come through the door. They have to satisfy these. Economic impact, environmental impact, all of these things have to come from reputable agencies and come to the government in order for a decision to be arrived at. But in relation to this particular zone and the requirements, there are requirements, for example, for them to provide their own water. There are requirements for them to provide up to 70% of their energy has to be renewable. There are requirements for them to make provisions for health care inside the zone. So if somebody were to get sick, it is not a burden on Nevis. If the water system will not be a burden, they have to have provisions for waste disposal so that their trash is not a burden outside the zone. Those kinds of things, Webbo, are requirements under the law. And they have to have provisions, certainly in relation to historic sites and the preservation of the environment, etc. So the legislation, I was a little, how should I say, surprised that the legislation attracted so much misinformation. And I say that because it's a fairly simple piece of legislation. It only runs to I think, is it 9 or 11 pages? I have it here in front of me, so let me check. I think it runs to 8 pages, actually, and is in, obviously, ordinary English. And so some of the things that I heard being bandied about, that these zones are going to be sovereign, they're going to be their own country, false. These zones are going to create areas where Nivisions cannot go, false. These zones are going to prevent fishermen from going into the sea, false. These zones are going to stop people from going to the beach, false. These zones are going to be 6 square miles of Nevis, false. It's just a number of things. The government is selling off the lands over there. Well, how the government could sell what the government doesn't own? It's one of the paradoxes of our time, because the government is being accused of selling land. And the government is saying quite plainly, the lands over there are owned by over 200 private landowners. If their lands being sold, then those lands are being sold by private individuals, which is their right. The government can't stop people from selling their land. Nivisions have been buying and selling land from time immemorial. So I just find that there's been so much misinformation, and that is what troubles me. I think as an educated population, we have every right to question, we have every right to discuss. And Webbo, that is the reason why I'm here tonight, because as Premier of Nevis, I have a duty to engage with the people of Nevis. And every opportunity that I have, I must engage. But I want to engage on a basis of fact, not fiction. I want to engage with ideas that contend. So for example, if people say, well, I don't believe that some lifestyle, luxury, tourism related type development is what Nevis needs. I believe Nevis needs manufacturing. I think that that zone should be an agricultural zone. Those are the kinds of debates I think that we should have if we're serious about development. But if we're just going to make things up, Webbo, if we're just going to manufacture things and take a view that is pejorative based on what we have manufactured, then I think it really doesn't help us in terms of our discussion.
Hence,
and that is why I've made myself available, and that is why I called in last week, and I'll continue to make myself available, because there is nothing to hide here. Nivisions, some Nivisions at least, have been clamoring for quite some time that one of the failures they allege of my government is that we have not been able to attract any significant investor. Yes, investors have come. But it is often said of my government, and I'm sure colleagues here have heard it, that investors are out at sea. They have said that nothing big has come to Nevis since 4 Seasons. But what I realized in the country is that whenever we hear that something is coming, rather than us saying, okay, let me listen and understand for myself what this thing is, we start the conjecture and the speculation, which is always negative, and we start to tell people how bad this thing is going to be. Now look at 4 Seasons. When 4 Seasons was coming, I was still a youngster then. But I remember people had the talk, said people can't go to the sea. Similarly, oh, we don't catch crab down there and pick coconut down there and all of that we can't do. But which of us could really argue today that 4 Seasons has not been beneficial to the overall development of Nevis? 4 Seasons provided a payday for many Nevisians. And many Nevisians have built a life, whether they're taxi driver or fisherman or farmer, out to the 4 Seasons and having access to that market. So my position simply is, we intend to come to the public in a series of town hall meetings and discussions, Webbo. I intend to saturate every corner of media that I could with hard information and let people debate the facts. What I'm trying to do is to get all the guesswork and the conjecture and the pejorative stuff out of the window. We are dealing here with development in a country. We're not dealing with what somebody imagines. We're dealing with what applies on the ground. So I will just say that, Webbo, I am very open to questions. That's why I'm here. But as I said, that's the level of debate that I'm hoping that the country can have on development. It could be this, it could be cannabis, it could be anything. Let us have a debate based on fact, not fiction. And I believe all of us will be better off as a result.
okay, hence the reason for the the procedure for this evening so that you can put what you know, and because you're in the position to know what are the facts entail in this particular project, and now we can now debate those. Who's ready? McMahon?
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Yes. I read the bill, and the bill is sufficiently vague to warrant more scrutiny and debate, in my opinion. I also notice that, yes, Nevis is ground zero as it pertains to the development that is supposed to come. But it also applies to St. Kitts. And we should not lose sight of that fact, because in reality, St. Kitts, you can say St. Kitts operates a variation of economic zone, of an economic zone. And one will tell you that it essentially sneaked under the radar. And when people eventually saw exactly what it entails, you know, some eyebrows were raised.
But
and so that is why I'm saying...
That is very interesting, Mr. McMahon. You are basically saying a version of that already exists in St. Kitts?
I would say yes, in terms of Christopher Harbour.
Right.
That is why I'm saying...
Okay, but did we have the level, and I know you said sneak, so we did not have the level of opposition then?
No.
Because there's quite a high level and maybe even more opposition coming from persons on St. Kitts to this particular thing. And if you're saying that there are already versions of it, it would not be the strong opposition. That's interesting, correct?
Well, I'm not sure I agree that there's a lot of opposition coming from St. Kitts.
On this particular bill?
Yes, I don't
Brantley, you said that you've been out there and you've been hearing the oppositions to it. Am I correct?
Not in St. Kitts.
Work with me. I'm asking Mr. Brantley.
All I'm saying is based on the commentary. I don't know if the commentary, because we have the same few people who comment, you know, and call in on every station. So I'm not sure that the commentators represent the broad body of Kittitians, but certainly somebody sent me some snippets recently of a show that was held over there dedicated to talking about this, even talking about mobilizing Kittitians to come over here and protest and that kind of thing. So it seems to me that there are some who are, for their own reasons, whipping this up. I'm happy that Mr. McMahon spoke to the Southeast Peninsula, what he calls Christopher Harbour, because again, there are some similarities in terms of a large tract of land basically being sold by private individuals for a development. And if we are truthful, we would agree, I believe, that had that development proceeded along the lines that it was contemplated to proceed, there would now have been over there golf course, hotels, villas, and that Southeast Peninsula was intended to become the sort of economic engine on St. Kitts. The problem you had over there, I think, ultimately is that the developers turned out not to produce what they said they would produce. You did get the Park Hyatt Hotel, you did get Christopher Harbour itself, the marina, and you did get some villas. But the bulk of what was promised did not materialize. That now, to my mind, comes down to whether or not you have the proper mechanisms in place to monitor and to ensure that developers who come do what it is they say they're going to do.
Okay, Mr. Brantley, on that note, that last sentence you just made,
yes.
Why is it that we don't seem to put the mechanism in place? Because it frequently happens.
Well, what I will say about this legislation, Mr. McMahon says that it's unclear, but I don't agree. I think it is crystal clear.
No,
well, you say it's vague. Yes. I debated it.
In other words, it can go all kinds of directions.
Well, I do not agree.
Okay.
I looked at this legislation. The legislation is very clear. It's very clear in what it requires. It is very clear in how it works. It's very clear in terms of the framework that it creates. What I like about this legislation, Webbo and colleagues, is that it provides that these zones can be created in St. Kitts or on Nevis. It, however, sets out how the zone can be created. First of all, no zone can be created in Nevis unless the NIA agrees and approves and signs off on it. The legislation section 4 makes that clear. But it goes on to say no zone can be created unless the Parliament, the National Parliament in the case of St. Kitts, the Nevis Island Assembly in the case of Nevis, approves the agreement that creates the zone. And then it goes on further, I think it's at section 9 that says the Prime Minister for zones in St. Kitts and the Premier for zones in Nevis can put in place a monitoring mechanism. So we can put a committee of experts to monitor these things. So what I'm saying, Webbo, is that you're absolutely correct that we've had a number of failed projects. But this legislation has sought to put some controls at the cabinet level, at the parliamentary level, and then at the monitoring level. You have 3 bites, if you will, at the cherry to say, how do you control to ensure that people do what it is they're supposed to do? And I think that this, therefore, is a quantum leap further than anything has gone before in terms of what we do for developments.
But based on the actuality, Mr. Brantley, though, you and I know, and the other panel members, that we have laws against everything. But the question is, how comfortable are we that the bill is put in place with certain things, but we are not going to get the same results?
Well, I think that Webbo, like anything else, you know, people said to me, and I think it was it Naya who asked me when I called in, can I guarantee, I believe it was Naya, that this is going to go exactly as we plan, or something to that effect. And I don't think that any of us has a crystal ball. I believe that leaders are required to take the best decisions that they can, armed with the information that they have. And I don't know that there are too many people in Nevis who would genuinely argue that Nevis does not need a game changer, that Nevis does not need to move to the next level of development.
Okay, Glendale.
Yeah, Mr. Premier.
Yes.
So this bill passed, and you mentioned here you deal in facts. So I'll try to apprise you of some things that has happened. And I don't know if you've studied zone around the world and what's been happening in these libertarian zones around the world. For example, Honduras. Postera in Honduras. You're familiar with it?
I've heard of it, yes.
All right, so for Honduras, there's a libertarian zone in Honduras, established around 2013 under the former president Hernandez. And that zone occupies 1,000 acres of land. And it's called Postera. And Honduras, as we know, is 43,500 square miles, 10 times the size of Jamaica. In your conversation with me and us last week, you said this zone would be 2,000 plus.
No, let me correct that. I said they're targeting 2,000 plus acres of land. I think it's about 2,400 or thereabouts. That's the target area.
So
okay.
In my imagination, I accept that as a compliance on your part that they're targeting that. And it's fair for everybody to accept it as if you're complied with it.
No, I don't understand. What do you mean complied with it?
No, listen, please.
Well, I'm trying to understand so that I can respond
I'm going to make it sure that you understand.
Okay,
you're next to me.
All right.
My point to you is as simple as this. You said last week the objective is around 2,000 plus. You said tonight 2004 in a minute ago. Not in a minute, 30 seconds, 20 seconds ago. The point is I'm trying to bring out to you here. Nevis is 36 square miles. With that said, Anbass property, which you and I know, and everybody on this panel here knows, is 600 plus acres.
So about 800 acres.
No, hold on, Mr. Premier. I'll let you
Yes,
go.
I'm just correcting the facts.
Without interruption.
Okay.
You can elucidate the facts after.
Okay.
I'll be, so kind for you to do that. I'll listen. My point to you is she's about 600 acres, ranging from Barnsgate all the way to Westbury, all the way up in Fountain. That entire hill whatever hill you call that. I forgot, Hurricane Hill or whatever they call it. Now imagine 4 times that in Nevis, a libertarian zone, because my information, and you can apprise me and apprise the country whether or not it's a libertarian project. The persons who you mentioned, Olivier Johansson,
Yes.
is a libertarian, and he's a part of that movement from what I glean and read and read.
Okay.
And he's looking to do that. Am I correct, sir?
But I don't know. I can only base on what has been proposed to us.
Okay.
And we have not had a libertarian zone proposed to us. We've had a development proposed to us.
Well, at least you should have the background of these folks and what their objectives are.
But
I've read, hear me out, please.
Yes.
Please, I'm begging you. I've read up on them, and they are proposing to do this libertarian zone with their associates around the world, which they have, ranging some, they mentioned folks like Veer, Roger Veer, and all these other people in their prospectus as associates. And I'm asking you, I'm going back to Honduras. Honduras today, the prime minister then who drafted that bill to allow the economic zone, or whatever we want to call it, free zone, whatever they call them these days, libertarian, is in prison in the United States, was extradited to the United States. The new president, President Castro, her name is, who took occupancy of office in 2022, has proceeded to repeal every one of the laws set up by and you know why? Because the country cried out, how the occupants of the zone, Postera, was treating the Honduran and at least beginning to marginalize them and begin to expand beyond that with their monies. Now, my point to you is has gotten to the point where Elizabeth Warren, in Congress, senator, has begun to draft bills and began to see bipartisan support in the U.S. Senate to make a drive to put the United States firmly behind Honduras on this one, because the occupants of that zone sued the Honduran government for almost $11 billion because of the repealing of the laws. So Vietnam, for example, is taking up the matter now to repel the zones as well. So there are a number of countries on this march to repel zones. Everybody got Google and everybody got ChatGPT. They can all go on and look and call in and refute what I'm saying.
Okay, Mr. Brantley.
Well, I'm trying to get the point of my brother's soliloquy, because he's telling me about Honduras and people going to jail in America, and Honduras is working to repeal. I mean, we are not in Honduras. We have, as a government, to confront what is before us. These zones, as I said, are nothing new. This is an attempt to create something which is based on sustainability. So if Honduras had a model that did not work in Honduras, I am not quite understanding, when we have in black and white what it is we are proposing by way of a legislative initiative available to my brothers here and available to the world, why it is we are being told what Elizabeth Warren is doing in the U.S. Congress. That is of no interest to the people of Nevis who want development and want to know what the development in Nevis will look like. And that is, again, part of the difficulty that we're having, because people are prepared to debate esoteric ideas. I'm hearing about a libertarian zone. I don't know what that is, because I don't have any proposal in front of me which says it's intended to be a libertarian zone, it is intended to be an independent zone, or anything like that.
That is why I asked.
Mr.
See what happens. No, give me a second. So what I'm saying is, that is why I asked the Premier at the beginning to put on the table what is involved in this thing, right? So that we can, and of course, people can make comparisons and stuff like that. So, McMahon, you wanted to get
Yes, I'm saying, I for one, I'm not against special economic zone or special sustainability zones, right? But the way that this has unfolded is troubling. And I deliberately started out by saying that the bill is vague because, you see, we have a record over the years. It's not just your administration. It's not just ones in St. Kitts. It seems as if once the government is elected, they feel they have carte blanche to do whatever they wish, and that is not how it should work. Okay? People, and I think you admitted it, that people were not privy to a lot of things, a lot of information. And in the absence of that, people are going to be concerned that things like what was raised, de facto sovereignty, for instance, we have every right to raise these issues to forestall them.
So in the absence of the facts,
You just make it up.
Exactly.
people say other things.
No,
Well,
what has happened,
I think that's fair in
what
terms of what
Daniel
Mr.
said.
McMahon is
Right.
saying. That is why, Mr. Premier, it was, you dropped the ball a little. Maybe the opposition or whoever, as you claim, was spinning and putting information. They got ahead of you. Let me get Naya in.
Webbo, I've been listening, yes. I would agree that we need a game changer on Ireland in a big way. I think things have been quite dormant on Ireland in terms of seeing any significant economic growth around here. My interest really is the safety nets at this point. The safety nets, because we're listening to Glenn and we're listening to Mr. McMahon, and there is some skepticism about what can happen, what can change going forward. And of course, Mr. Brantley have said that, we have the cabinet level and the parliament level and the monitoring level. But I'm not sure if the legislation spoke to the makeup, especially of the monitoring level. I'm interested to hear about that committee that should be in place to help analyze and put this thing together.
The truth is, Naya, isn't it true that the monitoring level now will be, the personnel will be put there by the government? And if we understand the history of other things that's put in place appointed by the government, we are looking at it from a practical standpoint. So am I understanding you to say that you agree, you have no problem with the thing, but your concern is right there?
I have deep concern in that respect, and what the legislation spells out in terms of the makeup of the committee, because I am one who think a cross-section of the population should probably be, involved in this committee.
Brantley,
the government might choose its people.
Yeah, Brantley, can you clear up that for
The legislation does not say who is supposed to be on the committee. The legislation says that for Zone and St. Kitts, the Prime Minister may appoint a committee, and for Zone and Nevis, the Premier may appoint a committee. But the issue of who is to be on the committee is not stated in the legislation. I would, however, say this, that I believe any serious government looking at a significant development would want to have people on such a committee who could add value to that. So it's one thing to talk about who's CCM and who's NRP and who's Labour and who's PAM. But for me, any committee to be taken seriously, because you have to have people there with the technical skills, the engineering skills, the financial skills, who can look at projects and analyze where they are and what's happening. Because as I understand it, with what is proposed, there are consequences.
Yes, but we are accustomed to a government to choose people who, of course, supports the government and not really people who are competent in those respects you have just mentioned.
So you're saying people who support the government aren't competent?
I'm not saying that.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying usually...
You could do both.
Usually, the government would choose people who support...
that's
our experience in the Federation, who supports the government. And they can also be competent people.
Right.
Yes, of course, they can also be competent people.
Now? What do we know normally obtains now?
Well, I don't know what normally obtains and what is normal for you.
Brantley,
I would
I would
anticipate that any committee appointed to monitor a significant project would have people who could lend value to such a committee.
But
And that would be my
that has not been our experience.
that would be my commitment on any committee appointed to monitor a project in Nevis.
Okay.
I need to know people who are skilled in development, people who are skilled in finance, people who understand what it is they're doing. Otherwise, what is the value? of having those
Mr.
individuals?
Brantley, so
Yes.
you recognize though and you appreciate that notwithstanding the legislation and in theory may be sound, the panelists, members are making the point that based on our practical experience, we perhaps might support the project, it sounds pretty good, but based on experience with other stuff, we have a little concern here.
Well, Webbo, in a democracy, if there are no concerns, then you don't have a democracy. There's nothing wrong with having concerns. And you know, I am not sitting here tonight to say that there is some panacea and it is foolish of people to have concerns. My brother Glendale has raised the issue about this scale in terms of acreage. I think that is a legitimate point that he has raised. So it's not a problem with concerns. All I've been advocating for on this discussion, as I would advocate for every public discussion, is let us ground it in fact. That is all I'm asking. I don't think that's asking for too much. So we can sit here all night and say, well, that section is not so clear now, and maybe people who do that and people with ill intention will do that and whatever. I believe that the electorate takes care of such matters. At the end of the day, governments are elected and governments have to provide leadership. At the end of the day, projects will come and the government has to assess with the technical expertise available to it and take the best decision based on the available facts that it has. And that is the way it goes. Now, Mr. Herbert, I don't want to leave your thing about the size of land unaddressed. I said about 2,400, somewhere in that area. I don't have a precise figure. That's a target. When I say target, I want to explain what I mean. It doesn't mean that they're going to secure those lands, because people may not agree to sell or lease their lands. Yeah? And I understand that part of what they're also doing is to say to people that if you have 10 acres in that area, and you don't want to sell, they're prepared to find you land elsewhere in Nevis and do a swap so that you could still have land if that is your preference. So they're going through all that. But what I would say is I understand that concern. Crystal Harbor, all the lands on the peninsula basically went to a developer. And, you know, the same and similar concerns were expressed about, you know, so much land in the hands of one person, etc. I feel, and I hope this is not controversial of me to say, you know what my bigger concern is, Glendale, is what is it that people are going to use the land for? Because we have the south of Nevis right now, where we have thousands of acres of land, and not one thing is over there. Those lands are not generating $1 in the national economy, in the local economy. Nothing, absolutely nothing is happening on that part of Nevis. And so we can say, well, those lands are owned largely by locals, not all, because some people who own over there are not necessarily local, but they're owned largely by locals, and therefore we prefer to keep it undeveloped and owned by locals, because those people for the last 100 years have not been able to develop anything on that part of the island. So the issue for me really is for us as Nevisians to make a determination. I mentioned Four Seasons. That was close to 500 acres, 400 plus. When Four Seasons came, some people argued that they wanted to do their crabbing and pick their coconut. A decision had to be made. Should we maintain crabbing and picking coconuts, or should we have something there that can, as it now does, employ 800 plus people? That is the kind of balance that you have to find in terms of where you're going and what you're seeking to do, right? I will just correct one other thing. I believe that the acreage for Miss Bass is closer to 800 acres, because she got the whole of Tower Hill, and then she also has a beach area that she purchased as well. And so she would have purchased a significant. Now, that is why, Glendale, I'm saying what you're going to use the land for is important, because Miss Bass, with all due respect to her, built a family compound. So you have 800 or so acres of land in Nevis, which is a private family compound. That's all. There's no resort, there's no anything, there's just a private family compound. Four Seasons, on the other hand, bought 400 whatever acres, and they built this beautiful resort and villas, and I think many of us have had a payday at Four Seasons. So what you're going to do with it, to me, is what I look at as being most relevant.
Okay, what I look at as being most relevant, and I probably sit in a different chair from you, what is you become land poor. That means you become less wealthy in terms of generational wealth. Listen to me very closely. The average sale price, from what I understand, and you can clarify that, is about $6 per square foot in that area, from what I'm hearing. So those people who are getting $6 a square foot, let's assume one person had 10 acres of land, they're probably worth a couple of $1 million to them today. The value is about $6 a square foot over there. Am I correct, sir?
I don't know, because I'm not privy to the sales agreements. So I don't know what is being sold for.
All right.
So I don't know.
That is the number that's out there that people are collecting on, right? Which is around $230,000 per acre. Now, in the event, it tells us in the event that 2,000 acres are sold, is somewhere about $500 million in sales, if you run the numbers fast. My point to you is, if Nivigen divest themselves of that land and take cash today, or some of them take cash today, they would have lost in terms of value, future value. Now, I don't know how much you know history, but in the Caribbean, Nevis is probably one of the most Nivigens are probably the most land wealthy people in the Caribbean, has been historically. Whether it's Trinidad, whether it's Antigua, it doesn't matter, because most of the people own north of 80% of the lands in Nevis, formally. And as you divest, you lose more of your lands. What tends to happen, you become poor individually in terms of your wealth. I'll explain why I'm saying this, Mr. Premier. You can take, if you have 10 acres of land, and it's worth, let's say, $3 million, you can go to the bank, any bank, and take an equity loan against your holding. And you can take up to 65% value against your values. And you can build a business, you can do many things and pay your loan. If you don't have lands, you can't go to the bank. And these lands are free and clear of any encumbrance or any bank loan.
But Glendale, well, let me intervene here and say this. You walk with me. You have this land, and you have it for 50 years. You can, in theory, borrow a lot of money against this land. But what if you don't have the requisite skills and what it also takes to make the necessary development?
Well, here's where I'm going now, Webbo.
Listen, walk with me. You would agree we don't have all night to get there.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why I'm asking you, so that we can get there a little faster.
I believe, Mr. Premier, what you ought to be doing and thinking, instead of this land, this huge footprint of lands that they're acquiring, and people are less wealthy as a result, what you ought to be doing is people in this country who have skills or who have ideas, entrepreneurs or what have you, begin to marry them with people, find people around the world.
Yeah, but that's been happening. But the land has been there from ever since. So okay, well, let me ask you this: do you know of anybody who will be denied of exercising that opportunity or suggestion that you've just made?
I don't understand, Webbo.
You don't? You want me to ask you again?
Webbo, I think.
May I ask you something, though?
Right? No. Let's finish. Let's go back to Glendale first, and then I'm going to come to the Premier, and I'll come to you. So you want me to ask you the question again?
You're asking me if anybody has gone to the bank.
Do you know?
That's what you're asking me?
Yes.
I never said that. My point is, once you've lost the land, you're not going to get it back.
Right.
That is my basic point.
You are making a point.
Yes.
Of what can be done with this land to get the best out of it. Right? So I'm asking you, are you aware of any person or group of persons that can execute or is willing to execute the idea or suggestion that you're making? It's either you know or you don't know.
I don't know if people are doing it, but that is not. That's immaterial, Webbo. To what the point is,
why would it be immaterial when
maybe their son or maybe their grandson maybe come? Let's say
but okay,
let me out. Maybe have an idea. Have the level of education or whatever. To come up with an idea
so here's what we're gonna do.
Are less wealthy.
Here's what we're gonna do now.
I don't agree. People are less wealthy.
So let's go to the Premier and then to McMahon.
I don't agree. I think wealth comes in different forms. Land is a form of wealth, just so is cash in the bank, just so are shares, just so is equity in a business. Wealth is measured in different ways. In fact, truly wealthy people don't have their wealth in one asset, because that's what land is. Land is an asset. And Glendale should know that if somebody comes and I have land, and that person wants to buy that land at a price that is acceptable to me, I can then use that cash that I get for a variety of other investments.
Of course you can.
So you can't tell me that because a man sells his land, he's less wealthy. I can sell land that I have on the south coast of Nevis right now and buy land elsewhere. Sell land that I have there, do a development elsewhere. That is the nature of business. And that is why I'm saying that just telling people these things. People have had land on the south coast for over 100 years. There's nothing over there. That, to my mind, the practicality of that speaks for itself. I am not here tonight advocating for people to sell or not to sell. What I'm advocating for is for the people of Nevis to have the right to make up their own mind as to whether they're going to sell or not. You can't tell a man, for example, who has been left some land by his father or his grandfather on the south coast, but who can't pay his bills because he has no income, who has medical bills to pay, who has a son that he wants to send to school but can't afford to, that he cannot sell his land because you don't know if your great-great-grandson going to have a good idea and be able to do something with it. All I'm saying, accord people that level of respect as landowners to make up their own minds and make their decision.
Mr. McMahon.
Yeah, I'm also saying that you should accord Divisions the respect based on the fact that this, I've heard descriptions of the project as a game changer, right? It's gonna, I mean, the next thing since sliced bread is gonna change. It's something that's gonna change the character and the complexion of Nevis. If that is the case, shouldn't Divisions be involved in that decision? And the question I wanted to ask you, why did you choose, there are several options available to you. Like for instance, you could have gotten the ideas from the developer for the project, determined among the cabinet that it's a great project for Nevis, go out and market it to Divisions, encourage them to invest in that project, whether by selling the land and so on, and then, right, you can proceed with the project. Because you know what has happened here? Basically, you've gone the other way, whereby you may not be exactly facilitating it, or some people may say you are, the sale of lands, and gave the impression that, well, there's nothing on the horizon coming as far as you know.
Mr. McMahon, again, please, but please do not try to mislead the listeners. You say I'm facilitating the sale of lands.
That's right.
Show me how. Show me how.
The mere fact,
yes,
right, that the sale of land is proceeding, because like I said, you had options. It's proceeding before announcing the development. You're putting
Mr. McMahon. Mr. McMahon.
As soon as you announce the development, you can bet your life.
Mr.
Premier, give me a second.
The sale of lands.
Mr.
That's the
McMahon.
point you made, and that is false. I have had nothing to do with any sale of lands.
Did you? I thought I heard you say you told the developer, well, go back and
go and talk to the private people and see if they're willing to sell the land. How does that involve me? So if you call me tomorrow and
you had an option to do it another way.
To do what
But you
another
chose
way?
you chose to do it that way, and it's
Let-
disadvantage.
but let me ask-
Division to hold
Okay,
them
let me
out.
ask
I
this.
have no idea what you're saying.
Let me ask this. So, Mr. McMahon, your issue at this juncture is not the
how it's
project,
unfolded.
the project itself,
Not the project itself,
but in
how it's
it-
unfolding.
how it is unfolding.
Yes.
Well, let me ask you this: what if the premier were to argue, just hypothetically, that Glendale, Naya, and myself got wind of what was happening, went out and started putting out information before he could come, because he has to make sure that he has certain things concrete and responsible as premier. So what if he argues that happened? That we went and put out in the public information which was not correct, way ahead of him, because he could not at a certain point come out before. What if he argues that?
Yes, but the fact is, and look, all of us know what things like insider trading and all those kind
No,
of things
no,
are
no,
about.
understand the
Right.
question I'm asking you. For instance, 2 weeks ago, you know, we normally have different panel members and so on the show. A caller called in and he made a comment, and he said, I find it strange that a certain panel member who normally is here and should have been here tonight is not here, because implying the topic that we were discussing. And when he was finished, I said, because he hung up at that time, I said, that certain panel member is ill. I don't know if that sufficed him. That was the truth. Subsequent to that, I heard other people implying that it's because of the topic that that same panel member did not come on the show. You see what I'm talking about now?
Both could have been correct, by the way.
Both could have been correct, but one was not correct. What was correct was that the person was ill. And there's no amount of me saying it will stop those other people from saying what they want. So how do I deal with that?
You see, what I'm getting, let me explain something, right? The major question is, who does Mr. Brantley work for? Okay?
But
And-
before
and
you
I
go to who
understand-
Mr.
I
Brantley
understand-
worked for, before you go to that, do you understand what I'm saying? Does it make sense?
Yeah, I know. I know.
Okay. And isn't it true that in this particular issue, a lot of the information got out, as per example, with Glendale, because
A
Glendale
lot of
knows,
the
work with
information
me, a lot of the information on this project was out in the public, right? And a lot of it was not true, as what happened with Glendale.
Up to when the premier had his
Before
town hall
the,
meeting?
yeah, no,
A lot
no,
of it-
Which town hall meeting?
The town hall meeting when that lady approached you.
no, work with me.
Right. So what information was
But
out?
you're speaking to me, correct? What I'm saying is, there was a lot of information about the project out in the public before the premier made the address,
Of course.
right? And I'm giving the example, the live example, because the information which you're trying to help Mr. Glendale with, the information about what was sovereignty, Mr. Glendale was peddling that information before that, the show that night, weeks before that, right? When the premier called in and basically put it to Mr. Glendale, then we all know what happened. So the truth is, you see, what we try to do, right, is put the truth and the facts on the table. A man has an opinion, that is fine.
It's fine.
Now you go ahead.
Webbo, the volcanic eruption under this issue, to me, I think is what Mr. McMahon is trying to communicate. That there exists a perceived deception as it relates to public knowledge, that the public felt that information was withheld from them by the Premier. They felt like the Premier knew about this project and knew sufficient about this project when he was asked the question in the town hall meeting, when he said he did not know anything about the project. And to me, this is the major eruption, because I believe...
But the Premier says, let's go to that and hear what the Premier actually said. So let's do this.
Now going down to the Atlantic coast, I go down there often. I love, my favorite view of the Nevis Peak is from the Atlantic Ocean down here. It's the only area that you can see the mountain as a perfect cone, and I think it's so very beautiful. I often go down there. I do a little line fishing, and I do that for fun. It's not a part of my livelihood, but I know we are a fishing village here in Hanley's Road, and I wish that there were more of our fishermen here tonight. But I've heard a lot of talk about the Atlantic coast from Brown Hill or wherever all the way to Butler's that is being sold. Persons from this village have been phoned and called about selling their property in the area, and it is rumored to be that it's going to be an area where eventually I'm not going to be able to go and do my line fishing. The fishermen are not going to be able to push off their boats from our coastline in this area. So I just wanted to get some clarity. I don't know who to direct it to directly at the head table, but if you could tell us at Hanley's Road, please, a fishing village which some people's livelihood depend on being able to go out to sea with their boats, what is going on as far as all the talk we hear about this becoming a private country within a country, an enclave, the lands are being bought, etc., etc. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the question. And the problem we have in our country, I feel, is that we have a lot of pundits who get on radio and get on the internet and engage in their punditry. A lot of opinions. And when they don't have the facts, they make them up. And unfortunately, some of our people listen to that and then start to shape questions and concerns based on stuff that's made up. As a government, we do not own any land, as far as I know, in the area that you have identified. We own Indian Castle, and I believe Mr. Hanley asked a question about Indian Castle, and certainly if and when we have a development at Indian Castle, we will come. Mr. Hanley, incidentally, I had it to answer you. I always try to answer your questions, that the Amman project, if you recall, we would have reported that we severed ties with that developer on Amman. And so the lands at Indian Castle are owned by the government. From Indian Castle going back to Long Point, those are private lands. And so, if any of us in this room approaches anybody along that stretch and seeks to negotiate to buy their land, what is the government supposed to do? The issue is you're either going to sell your land or you're not going to sell your land. It's private land. So that's a decision that landowners need to take. I am hearing a lot of hysteria being generated in the country about people buying up land as if it's government that's involved. Government has not been involved because we don't own 1 square foot of land in that area as far as I'm aware. Private individuals are having their conversations. That's a matter for them. If TDC come to you tomorrow and say, can you have 10 acres, I want to buy your 10 acres, you either say yeah or you say nay. How the government get involved in that? So a lot of
Okay. They have some more to it, but in the interest of time, if necessary, I could play some more of it. But Naya, yeah, go.
Webbo, before Naya comes back in,
Yes.
because I have suffered from this accusation of somehow, as Naya said, perceived deception. And I don't know where the deception comes in. We had a town hall on the 5th of July, bits of which you've just played. And I thought that what you were going to play was a clip where I said to the young lady.
Go ahead, Mr. Brandt. I'm going to look for that part because that's what I actually asked him. But go
I said to the
ahead.
young lady, I said, we have had an approach from a developer. People, I think, are building up all this chatter and this hysteria. I can tell you that we have had an initial approach by some developers who said they want to do a development along that coast. Nothing formal in terms of a formal submission has come to the cabinet. So as we are sitting here tonight, I cannot say to you in good conscience that we have a project that has come and that is being discussed. We have said to those potential developers, the government doesn't own any land in the area, so if you wanted to develop, go and talk to them. So, Webbo, that's the point that I'm trying to make, and I'm happy that you found the piece, because people are saying that, oh, I was deceptive. How was I deceptive? I was very clear that we have had an initial approach. We said to the people, we have no land. The government cannot help you with land for any development that you're proposing. The land's over there private. Go and speak to private people, and assuming you can secure lands, then you come back and speak to us. The people have now come back with a formal proposal to us. And so when the lady was saying, and I'm happy you played the clip because she introduced the language and said she has heard rumors of this and rumors of that. And it speaks to the point, Webbo, that you were making. There was all this misinformation out there. Fishermen can't pull up their boats. You heard the lady. Perhaps she was listening to my brother Glendale, sovereign enclave. And they go down that road. I could not, in good conscience, come forward and start to say this, that, and the other, because I did not have something formal that had been presented to us. We had had an approach, we had had some conversations. In fact, we sent the people, we said, go and speak to planning, find out what the requirements would be, go and speak to, various professionals in the community, go and speak to the landowners in the area and see if they're minded to sell. If you can do all that, then you come back and you speak to us. Now that the people have come back and speak to us, I feel that that was a responsible approach. As government now, I can speak with some authority on what I have now seen and what has come to us.
So
but for me,
so you're saying at the town hall meeting, when you said you were approached by the
yes,
by the investors, you're saying that you had absolutely no idea of some rudiments.
No. I am not saying that. What I am saying is that
so you could have given the lady more
Can I answer you? You asked me a question. I am not saying that. What I am saying is that as a government and as a responsible government, we did not have before us any formal proposal for that area. And so, for example, and I'll give you an example, the initial approach that the people made, that has changed fundamentally to what they've finally submitted to us as a proposal. Because we said them, go away, go and talk to planning, go and talk to different people. So what would it have benefited me to engage in a conversation which was entirely speculative, based on rumors, as the young lady identified her comments? I mean...
But would it have been more than just a rumor if, in actual fact, the developers... And I don't know how long ago they started. But they set out to acquire land.
With respect, the lady said she has heard a lot of talk, and there are rumors that fishermen will not be able to pull up their boat. People are not going to go to the sea. I had no such information in front of me about any such development that will prevent people from going to the sea or prevent fishermen from pulling up their boats. So as Premier of Nevis, what really was I expected to do? To sit down there and to engage in a hypothetical, well, that's where you hear, well, I hear something different. Or, I deal with fact, I deal with what is before us.
Mr. Brantley.
Okay.
And I'm not understanding what is so difficult about that to understand.
Okay, let us take this. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Hi, good evening. I hope you're all doing well, and I'm really glad you're having this conversation tonight. I have two questions about the bill and two about the proposal. So my first question about the bill is, given that the bill has the potential to drastically change Nevis, why weren't the town hall meetings kept before the bill was read in the National Assembly?
Yes. What's the next question?
The next question is, what solutions are available to the public if they're against the bill itself? So, for example, I've learned that repealing or amendments are possible, so I'm curious what solutions are available to the public.
Mr. Brantley?
First of all, I'm not aware of any bill, and I've been in the Parliament now for nearly 20 years, that has gone to town hall meetings before it has gone to the Parliament. So if people are saying that that ought to be the way, then I'm a servant of the people. I accept that. But that has never happened in my recollection in the past 2 decades, and I'm pretty sure it has never happened. Now, if the caller is saying that, I think again we must go back, Webbo, to what the bill does. The bill does not create a zone on the south coast of Nevis, you know. The bill does not create a zone at La Vallée, because if you heard the foreign minister, the member for number 6, speak, he mentioned that this might be a solution for La Vallée in St. Kitts. The bill does no such thing. All the bill does, it creates a framework for a zone to be created if the conditions are satisfied. So, for example, repealing the bill. If, of course, that is the sentiment of the public, the bill can be repealed. But repealing the bill is, in my view, neither here nor there, because the bill in and of itself does nothing except to create a pathway for government to create these zones if government is so minded, and if the preconditions that the bill sets out are satisfied. So, caller, I hear the talk about town hall before the bill is passed, but in my view, the bill, just like the cannabis legislation, just like the CBI legislation that was put in place, it's something that is created, coming from the Parliament, which is designed to create a framework to allow us to diversify the economy.
And put another way, before you play the game, you have to have the rules.
Of course.
Okay. Good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good evening. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, you're on the air.
Yes. Gentlemen, one of the panelists tonight alluded to this fact and said that if you have land and you sell the land, you become poorer than you were before you sell the land. Well, in my experience, I never see that yet in practicality, so I don't know. Maybe that is his experience, but I never see that yet. One of the things that I know is that land is an asset, and cash is also an asset.
Of course.
And usually, when people have land, they sell the land to get cash, C-A-S-H, cash. Well, that is what I know I would do if I have some land and I sell it. I'm selling the land to get cash. And I'll tell you why most people will sell land to get cash. Because you can do so much more with cash rather than land. I lived in New York for some time, and I used to listen to a gentleman named Donald Trump talk about finance and so on. And Trump would say over and over again, it's good to have cash, it's best to have cash rather than anything else, because you can use cash to do so many other things. Well, it has been my experience where I know that you have certain thing, and if somebody has to go there and say, oh, I have to go to the bank and this and that and so on, and you're selling the thing for $10, you pay, most time if somebody go there with $8 cash in the hand, they probably will get the thing before the other person. To me, cash is king.
Okay.
You sell land to get cash, so I don't need to say anymore. That's what you sell the land for, to get cash. So how the land could be a better asset than cash? Good night.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening, you're on the air.
Yes, good night.
You're on the air, could you go ahead?
Yes, good night. I'm asking the Premier a question. Did he collaborate with the Prime Minister to get this bill to the Parliament?
Can I go ahead and
Yes,
respond?
yes, sir.
Caller, I don't know what you mean by collaborate, but the
Or
legislation...
did you work with him to get the bill through to Parliament?
Well, I don't have any control over when bills go to Parliament. I'm in the opposition. If you allow me to explain, the bill would have been drafted by the Attorney General's chambers. And I would have seen the bill, of course, because it would have been disseminated to parliamentary members. There would have been a first debate in the Parliament, and I did get up at that debate and said that I supported the bill. And I believe it was 2 weeks later or sometime like that, there was the second and third reading when there was the actual debate. At that actual debate on the government side, the Prime Minister led the debate. Dr. Jeffrey Hanley spoke. Dr. Denzel Douglas spoke. I want to believe that Connors Maynard, but I'm not sure on that. But on the opposition side, I spoke, Alexis Jeffers spoke, and Eric Evelyn spoke. So was there collaboration? I would say to the extent that we agreed and supported the bill, but collaboration to get it to the Parliament, that is not something that the opposition is engaged in. Parliamentary dates are set. Of course, members would call around and ask, of course, who's going to be available to ensure that you have a quorum. And I did receive a call, and I did say that my team, that is the members and my colleagues in opposition, that we would be available for August 11th. But beyond that, there was no engagement as far as I'm aware in relation to that bill. So it would have...
Who would have asked the Attorney General?
Okay, another concern. And then I'll be leaving.
Yes.
Were there the three readings under that sitting, or was
No,
there a first
no caller.
and then a second and third?
Caller, if you listened to me before, I said there was a first reading. I can't recall on what date that was. And then I think it was about 2 weeks later, there was a second and third reading. So there was a first reading, and then later that was adjourned. We had the second and third reading of the legislation.
Okay, caller.
I find one moment. I find that very quick, 2 weeks, because to see the magnitude of the bill, I believe we should have gone out to the public to get their input into this kind of bill. Because
caller, what in your opinion makes the bill of such magnitude? I'm curious.
Because of what the discussion that is having now.
But that has nothing to do with the bill, caller.
No, but you see, if you got the input from folks on the outside, from the chamber, from other persons, then you would have had a more wider view.
Yeah, but caller, but my point is the discussion has really nothing to do with the bill. The bill is only setting some rules. The bill is setting a framework. Whether or not we ever get a zone in St. Kitts and Nevis, that is up to a whole different set of considerations. So all the bill does is say, listen, there's a possibility now of having this zone. The developer will have to satisfy all the requirements in Section 5, the preconditions. The Prime Minister would have to agree through his cabinet. If the zone is in Nevis, the NIA would have to agree. The Parliament would then have to agree. And that is how the zone is created. The bill actually is not particularly controversial. There's nothing about it that's controversial. Where the controversy is coming in is that a zone has been proposed for Nevis, identifying a significant portion of land on the south coast. And that is where the debate has, if you will, developed. I think Naya used the language of the volcano. That is really what has happened. What if, for example, caller, somebody in Keys village, I don't know St. Kitts so well, but somebody in Keys say, I have 5 acres of land here, and I want a zone created on those 5 acres. Because that's a possibility under the legislation. All it would mean is that person would have to go through and satisfy the preconditions. This debate really has nothing to do with the legislation. This debate has to do with the hysteria that has been created by a lot of false claims that have been made that we are now seeking to just to rebuff and say, listen, let's come back to facts and leave the fiction and the hyperbole to one side.
Okay. All right, caller. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Hi, thank you. I have some questions about the proposal itself. Can I ask these one by one as he answers, or do I need to ask all at
No, ask all at once.
Okay, so would it be possible for us to get a copy of the proposal that was submitted? Does the proposal include industrial sites? If so, what type of industrial sites? What is the proposed residential population of the site when it is completed?
Okay, thank you very much. The proposal does not have anything about industrial sites. As I said, it's about leisure. It's about residence and hotel. The first question was, can the public get a copy of the proposal? That is not the norm, that we would share a copy, but what I would share is the information from that proposal. So, for example, the supporting documentation, the economic report, the social and environmental impact assessment report, etc. Those, I think, there's every intention to share those and to have a discussion on those. The population, I can't quite answer that question. Those numbers are varying, but I think that the proposal does speak about a population in that area in terms of people living there, tourists, because remember, as I said, they're talking about a minimum of 3 residential areas being created, and so they have advanced numbers of anywhere from 7,000 to 10,000 people moving in and out of that particular zone, people living there, people visiting there, etc. So it is very significant in that regard, but those are the numbers that we have. I assume that as they firm up lands that are for sale or for lease, as the case may be, we would have a better handle on numbers in terms of carrying capacity of the zone. But those kinds of numbers are the numbers that certainly they have suggested could be possible in that zone, assuming, of course, that they can secure the acreage that they intend to secure for purposes of that development.
Mr. Premier, when in presenting the proposal and discussion, were the developers strict on saying all of this have to be in one particular area?
Well,
in other words, let's say they have 3 segments.
Yes.
Suppose, what if they were not able to get all the lands in that area, the Saddle Hill area, for instance?
Yes.
Would they be minded to have the same development in another area of Nevis?
Well, Webbo, we have not discussed that, but frankly, the approach that these developers have come with is that they want to do this development on the south of Nevis. And so the discussion about whether or not you could do some there and some elsewhere, because remember, if they're going to do it on 2-3 different locations, they have to apply to have 2-3 zones created, and they would have to go through a process for each of those.
Right. So what you see, what I'm getting at is this, because as you've indicated, it is something new, and people are accustomed, let's say, to 4 seasons.
Yes.
And they understand that sort of thing, so they're comfortable with that. So somebody can come and make a proposal to me, but based on what I may want or prefer, I can make a counter proposal.
Sure. And
so that's what I was sort of asking. So having heard from the people when you do the town hall meetings, etc., I'm asking whether or not you think that you can go back and say, well, my people were wondering, what if we were to do it this way?
Well, I mean, that's a possibility. I just say that we have not discussed that because that hasn't been before us.
Okay, let me take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening. Question for Mr. McMahon. Prior to the bill, did the Prime Minister do any town hall meeting? If not, why would the Premier in Nevis be required to do town hall meetings before the bill?
Well, for one, the bill had such far-reaching consequences. The proposal that was before the Premier apparently had such far-reaching consequences for Nevis, okay, both in terms of the geographical area and what may be involved in the development, that it demanded at least some consultation, I think, input from the public. And that is why I think the question that was asked previously was important. I'm still wondering if the Attorney General was prompted to do this bill, to draft this bill, at the instigation of the Premier.
Yeah, but if I heard the caller correctly, work with me, the Premier.
Sorry.
The question the caller asked you was not about the Premier. He asked you about the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
So you didn't hear that?
No.
What is the answer?
The
What
Prime Minister, Prime Minister, really and truly should be under the same strictures if it's a bill that is so far-reaching, that's going to change, the character of the country.
Webbo,
they should have involvement, and that is what it said.
Webbo,
So you can't just say, well, you elect me to lead, so I am going to do
Webbo,
what I want.
you see
That is
again,
not how it goes.
my friend Mr. McMahon is very good at erecting a straw man and then knocking it down.
It is not a straw
and
man.
patting himself on the shoulder. The bill does not change anything. The bill does not change anything. The bill creates a framework for anyone, including Mr. McMahon and any other landowner. I know my brother Glendale owns quite a bit of land in the Pembroke area. He can step forward now to the government and say, I like this idea of the special economic, the special sustainable zone, and I want to apply. What is creating the hysteria in the country is not the bill, you know. Is what commentators like yourself, who have not been armed with the correct information, have been saying to people. The Prime Minister in St. Kitts can receive an application tomorrow for any part of St. Kitts. For 5 acres, 10 acres, 100 acres, 2 acres.
But so look at the quantities that you're talking about.
The bill does not say anything about any quantities.
It's an little project.
But gentlemen, but right.
You again heaping speculation. This is the bill. Read it, go through it. I'm gonna leave this copy with you.
You said the proposal included things like 3 brand.
But I'm trying to suggest to you. But we'll hear the difference, sir. The proposal is not the bill.
But the bill provides the framework. It supports
the bill simply.
Okay, gentlemen, why don't we?
Cannot blame the bill.
Yeah, just give me.
So you come tomorrow with a proposal for an acre. That's the result of the bill. The proposals have to be assessed on their merit.
No, but you can't do the
anyway,
proposal.
Here's a copy of the bill. Here's a copy of the bill. That's my gift to you.
But okay, so what I was, with all due respect, well, Mr. McMahon, if you don't want to address the question, that's fair.
No, I did. I said the Prime Minister should have done similar consultation because of what is proposed by the framework that is proposed in the bill, because of what it can do. I said it was deliberately vague because it can go in a lot of different directions.
The question was, did he do any?
No, he didn't.
Okay, but Mr. Brantley did not do any?
No.
Okay, but Mr. Brantley has been castigated. So I think that's the point the Prime Minister, the person
on the panel.
Oh, okay. So when you're on other panels or when you make other comments, you work with
say that the government does not consult enough with the people.
Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Hello. Good evening, Webbo.
Yes.
Good evening to your panelists. Good evening to the listening public. Webbo, this is an interesting discussion.
Could you speak a little louder, caller?
Yeah, I said this is an interesting discussion. The way this this bill was passed into the House, it leaves a lot of questions unanswered. It's very vague. Some might not agree, but everybody is entitled to their own opinion. Last week, for instance, one of the things that was made clear that I didn't get from the reading of that bill, and that's a legal thing. I mean, saying that is in plain English, you know. I mean, but anyway, I understand from the Premier's explanation that the developers will first have to acquire the land, buy the land, get the land, and then apply to the government, the two different governments, for approval for a SSEZ zone. That I did not get. You know, what is troubling is that this thing was whisked to the House, and the Premier didn't see it fit to come to the people and explain what it is. And whereas he waltzed off and went to Martha's Vineyard, and by the way, Mr. Premier, congratulations, and to you and your lovely wife. I think before you've done that, you should have come to the people and explained what the bill entails. Not everybody could read and understand what it is, or will be able to grasp everything what it is. Don't wait until 2 weeks later, when people start to speculate and say all manner of things, come back and say, castigate these people and say they don't read. Not everything that is written is understood in the way that is meant by the writer. People understand things differently. And you, with all the facts, will wait until now to come on radio to explain to me, these people, what the bill means or what the bill entails is unfortunate. It tells me that you're leading from behind. You should be leading from the front. You lined up a few things earlier, and you said false, false, false. And those are all questions that Ms. Lawrence asked you at a town hall meeting. And you said you didn't know anything about it. And then you asked, where is the deception? Mr. Premier, you got to be honest with people. You're doing more damage to yourself by all this deception. I mean, it is what it is. It is what it seems. The optics, I mean, you can't blame people. If you had come and explain this thing, I mean, why would anybody think it's not a secret? If you had come and explain this thing, I mean, a lot of this uncertainty and emptiness wouldn't have been. But in the absence of information, in the absence of facts, in the absence of explanation, this is what you get. You have to blame yourself for that. Thank you.
Okay.
Webbo, if I can, the caller has taken a text out on me. But the difficulty that I have in a country that boasts 99% literacy, the caller is saying that he don't understand basic English. I am having a difficulty with that. The parliament was not held in secret. The parliament is public. It was broadcast. And the fact, caller, that people sought to mislead you and mislead the public, you can't put that at my feet. You can't say to me that I am to blame because people went out and lied and tried to work up the population about things that were simply not true. You said I waltzed off to Martha's Vineyard. I don't know if that was intended to be pejorative, but I went to Martha's Vineyard for very important tourism business, and I think it was a rather successful trip. But my position, and I have always been very clear, and caller, you could judge my record. I've been in public life for quite some time. I am not in the business of hiding things from the people of Nevis. That has never been my approach to politics. And so it seems to me that your concern is that I shouldn't have come when I came, I should have come earlier. Well, that is your opinion. I am now, since the 25th of August, I spoke on the bill, I explained what the bill provides, and I have made myself available. I'm here tonight. I'm not normally here, but I'm here tonight because I think that that is my job, to explain carefully to the people of Nevis what is happening and what is afoot. If you feel, caller, that you did not get that information fast enough and therefore I ought to be condemned, then that is your matter. Maybe you like to eat things before they're ready. I like to come to the population with information when I have actual information that I can share. And I really, all who want to accuse me of being deceptive, it's a matter for them, because, again, if you heard the clip that was played tonight, there's not once that I suggested that I knew nothing about any development. I never said that. So I don't know. You say you want things to be explained to you, but there was a clip that was played from the 5th of July where I say we have had an initial approach by developers. I said that. What I was not prepared to engage in is the rumors and the speculation. Now, if I am to be found guilty of that, then so be it. But I will maintain my position that as a responsible head of government, I must speak to the facts as I have them in front of me and as I know them to be. So if the timing caller didn't suit you, I apologize. But what are you now going to say? That the lie done out there so that can take root, so now you hear the truth, you now study with the truth? Whenever the truth comes, it is the truth. The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Okay, good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening, you're on the air.
Yes. Good night, Webbo.
You're on the air, could you go ahead?
May say good night.
But I said good evening.
Good evening.
You're on the air, could you go ahead?
Yeah, me hear you. You hear me?
Good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening, you're on the air.
We like when you.
Could you go ahead?
May say good night.
But I said good evening. Good
evening.
The caller's answering
caller, you listen to the phone, okay? Good evening. Good evening, you're on the air. Could you go ahead?
Good evening.
Caller, could you turn your radio down? And you will hear the conversation on the phone. Okay, let's try again. Good evening, you're on the air.
Hello, good night.
Yes, you're on the air. Good evening, you're on the air.
Hi, good evening. I have a few more questions about the proposal.
Well, why don't you ask one or two, and then we'll give somebody else an opportunity, since you have had about 6 before.
Okay, that sounds fair.
Okay.
So recalling that the zone is meant to be highly lucrative and luxurious to attract wealthy persons, and then from your quoted number of 7,000 to 10,000, I'll make an assumption on the low end that maybe about 1,000 would be residents. So my two questions then would be, would the residents be allowed to do business outside of that zone in other parts of Nevis with or without citizenship by investment? And the second question is, if these individuals have their children born in Nevis, would those children also become citizens by birth and then have the assumed rights of citizens by birth? Thank you.
Well, under the current constitution, caller, anybody born in Nevis has the right to citizenship. In fact, you could be passing through. If you're pregnant on a cruise ship and you came ashore and had your baby, it would have the rights to citizenship. So the answer to that second question is yes, because that's the constitutional. We have birthright citizenship here. And so anybody who has a child here, that child is automatically a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis. In relation to people being able to do business outside the zone, it is interesting you ask that, because that is one of the points that we're discussing currently, and one of the points that we hope to discuss in the context of our public debates and discussions on this, is what limitations should be put on individuals who might be in the zone. Currently, for example, we have hundreds of people who live inside Four Seasons. Many of them are not there all year, but they have 70-something, 80 homes or whatever they have. And they're free to engage outside Four Seasons. They do various things outside Four Seasons. So the question is really, what model are we going to use? And that is a matter that is under active consideration by us at this point in time.
And then maybe the sequel to that question then would the people outside the zone be able to go inside the zone?
Yes, of course.
To engage and
of course,
and
in fact,
everything.
in fact, one of the things I said, Webbo, is that one of the great, in my view, opportunities inside the zone. We're talking a few thousand people. They need to eat. They need to buy food and all of that. You know, I could foresee Rams or Best Buy or one of those setting up supermarkets inside the zone. That there's opportunities for businesses providing services inside the zone. So I think that there's going to be a host of opportunities potentially for local individuals to engage and to provide their goods and services within that zone to those who are resident there.
Yeah, go ahead. Naya, McMahon, you want to get in?
Yes. Remember, I have to leave in a short while. I just like to make a suggestion. It's obvious, I think, to the Premier that something went awry with the rollout of this, the unfolding of this, and I'm hoping that going forward it would be best practices that are used. You mentioned, for instance, that a plan of the proposal and so on, it's not the usual practice to have the proposal released to the public. I think in this case you can make an exception, and it is best practice anyway, that when you have developments like these, significant developments like these, the stakeholders are involved. They can make an input. Okay? There's that, and you have to understand this skepticism. We've been to successive administrations where they seem to hold these things close to their chest. For what, I don't know. Agreements, they make agreements with these things. I don't know if they're not shrewd enough, if they're too mesmerized by people who come, say they're billionaires or what. But it's almost as if they go out of their way, bend backwards and accommodate these people. And then they end up with problems. You see, time and time again in the Federation, that you end up with a fait accompli, and then you have to do all kind of cleanup. And most of the times, it's the taxpayers or National Bank or whoever have to be footing the bills. That is why people are skeptical. And I'm saying that the style that you all adopt can change and can be better. So what I'm saying is, involve the people more, right? Stop saying that people don't read and can't read and all that nonsense, and stop insulting people.
Mr. McMahon, who said people can't read? Please, do not, I mean, as I say, I go back to your propensity for fiction.
I'm being general. Right? I'm being general.
Well, but you're introducing things that are simply not said.
Of being very sarcastic. We all know it. But anyway, what I'm saying is, right, if you be more inclusive and involve people, I think that you'd get a better result than this my way, highway approach, or you elect me so I can lead, and I can lead this way, and that's it. It's too much of that, and it always gets the successive governments into trouble. You don't want to take the advice, that's fine. But that is what I'm just saying. That is what I say.
Webbo, as Mr. McMahon departs, I just want to warn him that there's a danger of confusing his skepticism for public skepticism. I want him to think of those words as he leaves. Because well, and that's fine. Right. But I'm saying to you, don't conflate the two. Because I am not persuaded that people know getting information, hard information as to what the legislation provides and what is being proposed, that the confusion, the level of confusion that was deliberately created by others, I'm not persuaded that that level of confusion still exists.
If you mean the opposition,
I am speaking with
the opposition,
Mr. McMahon. I listen to you. Please allow me now to respond. I am simply saying to you that that level of confusion that was deliberately created that that level of confusion, in my humble opinion, from my engagement with the people of Nevis, no longer exists. And people now are understanding, oh, okay, this is what is it. Let us now get into the nitty-gritty of the development itself to say whether or not it is something that we like or don't like. The other thing I would say, you keep approaching with a broad brush about governments this and governments that. Be very careful. Because I am on Nevis. I've been the Premier of Nevis now, going into a second term now. And I am not aware of what you're describing happening in Nevis. You say about national.
How many times have you said that investors are coming, etc., etc.? How many developments have been promised? The same thing.
But you went on to say about.
Okay, Mr. McMahon, let him finish, and then I'll let you
to talk about taxpayers and National Bank being left to clean up. There is no example of that on the island of Nevis. So be very careful. When you're very careful. No, but I'm trying to say to you, you're trying to give me advice which we are already following on the island of Nevis. So direct your comments to who you want to direct them to. Don't come to Nevis with that commentary because it doesn't exist here. And that's the point that I'm making. I don't know what secrecy you're talking about. We've had a fulsome discussion. Questions have been asked. Questions have been answered. But what I find, Webbo, is that to some, it matters little what is ultimately said. Because they need to hold on to this idea, this skepticism, to use my friend's word, that they have of government. Well, if you are skeptic, then that is your business. Okay. Right? Let us proceed in a sensible fashion.
Okay. And I'd just like to say good night to the listeners. A good discussion, good debate. I think it should continue, and I think you should continue to press the government and hold them accountable, because they're not being held accountable.
Okay, Mr. McMahon, just again to let you know that is standard operating procedure on the island of Nevis.
Mr. McMahon, thank you.
Every government in Nevis has been held accountable.
Okay, let's do this. Good evening.
So give that advice the way you need to give it.
Good
Have
evening.
a safe trip home.
Good evening. Good evening. You're on the air. Take a minute.
Yeah. Premier Brantley, good night.
Yes, good night to you.
Yes, you said earlier that the land and them over there, and they don't even bring in $1 like to the GDP. You remember you said that?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody pay land tax over there?
That's bringing in something to the GDP?
No, me go get there. You said that the land and them. The land
Carl,
and
I know what I said.
And not bringing nothing.
I know what I said. Time is short. What is the point you want to make?
The point that me make is that you got import bills. And over they provide mutton, over they provide meat. If the meat and then over there, how much money would go out for the country to bring in meat? So you can say that the land and them over there not do nothing.
The land producing meat?
Okay, caller. Good evening. Thank you for holding. You have a minute. Okay, callers, please be patient with us. We have a few minutes, and we're trying to get as many persons to contribute. Good evening. Thank you for holding. You have a minute.
A minute. Okay, good night. Two quick questions. One to Mr. McMahon and one to the Premier.
Mr. McMahon has left, so direct your question to the Premier.
Premier Brantley.
Yes.
Is it normal practice that you discuss a bill that is before the House, in the public, before it is discussed in the Parliament and passed struck now?
I have never seen it done in 20 years in Parliament.
The cannabis bill.
Well, I am an old man. I never remember seeing it done either.
So Naya is saying the cannabis bill was done. I don't recall that.
But
I know there was discussions about cannabis, but if he's saying that, then I will yield to him. But it is certainly nothing near a common practice to do that.
I never see it yet. Right. I never see it yet.
Not only that, caller, but there are numerous examples of bills that go through a first, second, and third reading in one sitting. So that means there is no opportunity to discuss anything with the public. You go first, second, and third reading, one sitting.
Mr. The caller.
Yeah.
Just a point of information. If you have $1,000 in cash, you put it on your bed. Next year, that $1,000 is worth $97 to $95 because of inflation into it. You have lands; it keeps accruing. You understand? It keeps accruing in value over time. That is, hold on a minute.
Mr. Herbert, Mr. Herbert. Mr. Herbert, you're trying to instruct me on that?
Well, because you said to me, land, the cash in hand is of so much more
valuable than the land.
I'm trying to tell you.
You cannot tell me.
Would you allow me, please?
Okay.
Would you allow me?
Mr. Herbert, I own land and I know about land and cash.
No, but I'm just instructing you.
No, you can't. I know you're not instructing me because what you're saying is wrong.
Cash is fiat.
You're wrong.
Would you please listen, please?
The land that you have, Mr. Herbert, can be turned into. You have the land, and the land can be turned into cash. That's what I said.
Yes, but I'm trying to.
The cash is more valuable than the land.
Okay, caller.
Thank you, caller.
And that's why you turn the land into cash, because you can use the cash to do many things that you cannot use the land to do.
Okay,
So
okay,
cash is
caller.
more versatile.
Okay,
You're
caller.
telling me this, Mr. Herbert.
Okay, caller. Miss Glendale, you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Premier, I just wanted to ask you a question.
Sure. No, you wanted to make a point with the caller. What was your point?
No, my point is that cash loses value if you put it under your bed. It
Okay.
doesn't accrue interest.
Okay, so go
Whereas
ahead with your...
lands just continue to increase in value over time. My point to Mr. Premier, though, is when did you learn of the investors?
Oh, in terms of a date, I believe it was sometime last year. I would have thought sometime towards maybe the middle of last year. I would want to check on that, but yeah, it would have been 2024.
2024.
Yes.
So that's when you learned about it.
That's
about
when
the investment.
That's when
because I would have known that calls were being made in terms of people who were willing to purchase lands over a year and a half ago.
Well, 2024 is over a year and a half ago.
No. Well, the
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening to the listening public.
Yeah, caller, before you start, you got a minute?
Okay. Mr. Premier, you said the government ain't involved in selling no land in the South. Here my question to you. Are you as the Premier, or anybody in your family involved in purchasing or selling land in the South?
The short answer is no. My wife is a realtor, and she has been doing some work for the developers in calling landowners, and asking them if they're minded to sell their land to the developers. But neither myself nor any family member has any land in the area, and we're not involved in either buying or selling lands in the area, because we don't have any lands to sell, and we don't have any interest in buying any lands in the area. So I'm not involved at all, and as far as I'm aware, no family member of mine is buying or selling anything.
Naya?
Just generally giving thanks for this open-ear discussion. I think it's brought a lot of clarity to the issue, and I think this, of course, should be the start of more discussion as proposed by the Premier. And of course, the enlightenment of the public is paramount in democracy, and I think it's a good thing.
Glendale, final comments?
Final comment is a good discussion. I think the discussions need to continue. I think there's a lot of elephants in the room that has not been spoken to yet, and the public are concerned about a lot of things regarding this project and this, at least projected project or project that you've been trying to put forward. I think there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of answers to be given on this, and a number of areas have not been touched yet that the public thinks about.
Brantley, final comments?
I am not so ambitious as my brother Glendale to tell you what the public thinks about. What I will say is that I have been having a number of discussions, whether it's at the barber shop, on the radio, on the phone, engaging on social media. I have engaged on radio, and I am satisfied that the questions are being answered, that uncertainty is being clarified. I listened to the earlier caller who said that he didn't think that he thought I should have come earlier, but I would just like to say that I come when I have information. I come when I could sit behind this microphone and say to the general public, call in with your questions, and I'm in a position to answer them. And if that is wrong, then Webbo, that I'm guilty of that, but that is and has always been my approach. I think this discussion has been very helpful this evening. I want to thank you for having me and thank my brothers Naya and Glendale, and of course Mr. McMahon, who is here as well. I believe that I would want to associate myself with what they have said, that these discussions need to continue. Whether with me or with others, they need to continue. And I think what we need in the country is discussions that are based on fact, discussions that are grounded in fact, not fiction, not speculation, but grounded in fact. Because I think if we go off in the realm of rumors and what we hear and what we think and what we read somewhere, then we go down these rabbit holes, and I don't think that that helps us at the end of the day. So this is where we are. We are talking about development, Webbo. The island needs development. I think all of us can agree. The type of development, the scale of development, I believe those are legitimate debates that we should have in Nevis. And on that score, I am here tonight because I'm minded to engage and to hear all shades of public opinion on these very important matters. We must accept that we are shaping a Nevis today, not for Naya and Glendale and myself, because I think that if I can be presumptuous to say, we probably have fewer years ahead of us than behind us. So who we are shaping Nevis for is really the generation to come and the generation after that. And that is why these conversations are so important. And so I encourage everybody to debate respectfully. Let us continue to uphold those rich traditions for which Nevis is known, civility and respect for each other. And we have a discussion that hopefully can inform the final decisions that we take on the direction for our beautiful island. So thanks again, Webbo, for the opportunity.
Premier Mark Brantley, Glendale Herbert, Ira McMahon, Conrad Naya Liburd. We thank you all very much for joining us this evening. This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Join Keith Scarborough at 8 o'clock on Thursday evening for Government at Work. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community. Talk that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program was solely